Very good evening to all our viewers. Welcome to today's edition of the Evening Review. My name is Dr Job, your host. Tonight we are joined in studio by Dr. Job Amupanda. He's chief activist of the affirmative repositioning movement. And yesterday they held a press conference at which they touched on a number of issues. There was an update on the case that he is personally pursuing against the Red Line. And then, of course, the National Assembly congregation that the movement is having at the coast this weekend. He is here to talk to us about those things. Doc, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Let's start with the Red Line. I must declare my interest. I've been public that I am one of the people who actually oppose the Red Line. Unapologetically so. I've been debating on social media about it the whole of today. I'm putting out my convictions there. But in your case, what is the latest? We know that there was a hearing around legal costs, who should bear the cost and whatnot. If you can start there, maybe.
Yeah, well, maybe let's start with your disclaimer. I think generally, if there was going to be a polling, it's almost like we have to be very clear about certain things.
Yeah.
If people are talking about the difficulty of pregnancy,
yeah,
and we are seeking for opinions from men, it will not obviously work. If you're somebody who is the southern part of the Red Line,
yeah,
but that's not to say there are no people who don't support the removal. So it has two ways: people who are directly affected by this practice, but also people who are ideologically and rationally sound in terms of the fight for justice and equality. So regardless of wherever it is that they are located, I am convinced that a huge number of people in Namibia agrees that this injustice, it simply just have no place.
Yeah.
And even those that want the Red Line to remain, and you could see that they are meandering around.
Yeah.
They are meandering around the real issue. It's almost like when we grew up, you would see that when the guys want to fight, and then somebody is holding them, then they are becoming loudest. You say, yeah, leave me, I need to beat this guy. But immediately when you just leave those guys, all that they're just going to be doing, throwing one part, throwing back. It will even be 30 minutes without...
So punch landing,
because they're not actually getting to the issues there. Yeah. So what's happening in terms of this case? They understand that there's no case. They don't have a case, and usually when lawyers understand that there's no case, what they try to do is employ a particular litigation strategy to be able to do an assessment. They did miscalculation to be able to somehow see if they can win. It's not the first time. You remember Minister Shanghala at the time when he sued me for telling the truth that, to my mind, he was the epitome of corruption at the time. So when he sued me, and first the strategy was that I would maybe surrender, and I would just surrender. You know, there are some letters of demand that they were writing. In fact, I even wanted to respond myself and not the lawyers. We just indicated, no, we are sticking to our guns. So, and that strategy failed. And then he filed, hoping that we're going to then do that. Then he realizes I'm defending the matter. And in fact, I was prepared that I'm going to be in court and say, yes, that judge, you can find me guilty, but I believe this man is an epitome of corruption. Then he employed a different strategy, which is called interlocutories. And our people are not explained to understand what is basically... It's like the litigant, the person, in this time, the respondents, they take issue with the style, you know, these cosmetic things that, no, this comma is not in according to the rules of the court and things like that. That's the first thing that they did. Yeah? Both of them, the mid-board. In fact, before that, mid-board, when the government, it was myself as an applicant, and the government, the minister, the attorney general, and the person who confiscated So, but then the owners of a means of production, the whites, decided, this government, the way how they are going to lose this case.
Yeah.
So they don't have confidence in the government to protect their interests. So they decided, we need to join that case ourselves. And they asked themselves, what instrument are we going to use? And they start using now this mid-board to join. So before the case could then proceed, the first hurdle that they put in our path is to apply to court. So the court would then say that we are not proceeding yet. We must first hear this application of these guys that want to join the mid-board. Then again. So we said, okay, fine, let them come. We are not scared of you. Let them come. The mid-board got admitted. Then they went to get advocates, including Heathcote, for them to be able to do that. After they are done, then they realize, this guy is not budging. So then they realizes that, no, we actually need to find issue again. The government, this time, your president, your ministers and the cabinet, they decided, they set in cabinet and they resolved that they are going to oppose this. And then they said, no, we must partner up with the mid-board to stop this guy. Because the master is not happy. After that discussion, and they agreed, the government started now bringing another interlocutory.
Yeah.
And another hurdle again to say, no, I must apparently save all those commercial farmers. So I would have had to get a bakkie and go to all those commercial farmers at their houses and say, I'm saving you. They brought that application to court. And when they brought that application to court, and the court said, but, our lawyers went to argue, is because I'm with Kadila and Advocate Chibwana, and to say that why is it that this thing is just been handled this way? Why are we not getting there? So the court ordered, okay, instead of agreeing with the method that is proposed by the government of the Republic of Namibia on this matter, there is what they call a substitute. I can't find the terms properly. What it means is that I was then ordered to advertise, the court order, to advertise it in the Namibian Sun, in New Era, in the Republican. The court order actually had the names of those newspapers. And what's the other newspaper?
The Namibian.
The Namibian. That's one of the order for 2 days, on the 18th and the 31st of October. So you pay for that advert on the 18th, and then you then do it again. I was again ordered to advertise in the government gazette for 2 days. I was then again ordered to serve this court order in all magistrate offices in the country. So then after that, everywhere, wherever it is there is a magistrate court, I must serve that document. But I understood that the idea is to weaken me, my resolve and determination, and I had to do what I had to do. We served that application to all magistrate courts in this country. We advertised in all those newspapers for those 2 days. We also advertised in the government gazette as they required. So when we went to court, one of the lawyer of government stood up and say, I think it's a certain Stein or something. I think Van Stein, but I can't remember. But so he stood up and said, Judge, we must get the cost because we don't even know whether he has complied. So their hope, and as part of the litigation strategy, was that I don't comply with that. So they are throwing a lot of things that are happening there, so that you weaken, you liquidate, and you quarantine a person so that they are unable to do that. Having seen that strategy, obviously my legal team also had to respond, because they are saying, look at how far we've come. We didn't even proceed because they are just asking about racing exception, do all this, the commas, the full stop, and all these things that there's nothing to do with the material aspect of the case. We had to respond with a litigation strategy, and we said, okay, but I'm not asking to be paid money because my car was bumped or there was some contract. This is an issue of rights that are in the Constitution that must be vindicated. Anti-discrimination rights that are in the freedom of movement, you know. And when we say that you have a freedom of movement, that in Namibia you can reside, you have a freedom to move and reside wherever it is that you want. The Constitution doesn't imagine you are walking around naked. wherever it is that you are going to go. You are going with your phone, you are going with your cool drink, you are going with what, everywhere where you are supposed to go. Unless there's a subject or an object that is illegal. Because when we are told about freedom of movement, we don't assume that we have a freedom to move around with the AK-47 even in church. Yeah. We accept that, but meat and meat products, we are not declared as illegal subject. It's not cocaine, it's not drugs, it's not all those other things. So we're supposed to be moving with our products in our position, in our vehicle, wherever it is, to feed our families. Yeah. So it's against that background that the legal team decided that we need to apply, it's not a new thing, we need to apply what is called a protective order against cost. It means that in cases where the case is of public interest, so it's not really a personal thing where Trasco is fighting to be against liquidation by the Bank of Namibia, for instance, like a personal matter where maybe a boyfriend is suing the girlfriend for, those things that have no public interest. It is a practice in our courts that a matter like that also affect many people. So they should be, you should be able to do. It's an avenue that we then explored. We said, okay, since this is what you are busy with, let's also apply for that. So then they are opposing it again. And funny enough, even on their version, they are saying, we are saying this is a complicated matter. It is a matter that is of public interest. Therefore, we are applying for protective cost order by the court. But they are also saying on their version that it's a complicated matter. Because it's complicated, they must, because we were opposing that story of saying we must save, we must pay the so-called wasted cost. Yeah, and they are saying because the case is complicated. But if you are admitting that the case is complicated because of the ramification, it basically means that our version that this matter is of public interest is not contested. And in fact, what they are seeking to do, both the government of the Republic of Namibia and the Meat Board, they are saying that no, they need to, they are saying that there is a, I think the Rule 32 or something, it says there is a cap on this thing of wasted cost. It's just 20,000. Now, because they want to liquidate me, they are applying to court and say, no, judge, please disregard this Rule 32 or whatever the number is, so that all our cost can be paid by him. So that's the judgment that we are now waiting, that is coming probably on the 2nd of December, because they want to get, they want to bypass the rules, because there's a cap. There's a reason why the court in our rules made provision for that cap. So those are the funny things that they are just busy with. Yeah. So our matter of the protective cost, because we are, for every action there's a reaction. Yeah. So we want the matter to be to proceed so that it can be heard on the merit, not on the street where you have many opinions. Yeah. There's a reason why we decided to go to court. Yeah. We could have decided that we will go and physically remove the fence. It's not a difficult thing to do. We'll cut that fence if that's what we wanted to do. But we thought we're in a constitutional democracy. Our judiciary, despite the challenges that are there, here and there, has proven now and then that they are able to at least vindicate rights. Why don't we use the institutions of the state? The Constitution says that all people, all power shall vest in the people of Namibia, who shall exercise these powers through democratically established institution of the state, which the judiciary is one of them. So we thought, okay, let's give the judiciary an opportunity, but it's not because we are cowards. I mean, we know exactly what we need to do. One of the easiest way to remove the red line is to remove these sellouts that are keeping the red line. And that's why we have also given a clear instruction that since the government and the cabinet are saying the meat is contaminated and the foot and mouth disease, and then we give a clear direction at the funeral, at the wedding, if you just see Kaleshlet Vine or whoever, anyone who has not pronounced clearly, but Natangwe Ithete recently come out and say that thing must go. If you see Veiko Nekundi, Maureen Hinda at the funeral, and you are a person who understands what needs to happen, from Kaoko to the Zambezi, that plate, there must be no meat. And we also give a clear instruction that if it's in the restaurant, because they would have to pay for it, the strategy must be different. Just take a little small piece. If it's meat, just take maybe a bone with the little one, and then you You give her because they have paid for it. So that at least when they receive bones in their plates, then they would understand that, this is a serious issue.
There's need for meat.
Yes.
Yeah. Doc, we go for a quick break and then we return.
NMH Ad 1 brings you news from all across Namibia. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact nmh1@synergy.com.na. NMH Ad 1, your lunchtime news companion.
The conversation continues with Dr. Job Amupanda. Now, Doc, if the logic that the respondents are using was to be flipped and reciprocated, can people who may now want, because we have seen a lot of people from the other side of the fence, and of course, like you said, people from this side of the fence, but who believe in justice and equality, if they were to say, look, we want also to join you as an applicant in this matter, what does the law say there?
No, they are allowed now because that's the sword cut both ways. Because you see, when these guys, what they are trying to do in court now, they are trying to organize all those commercial farmers, all those millionaires to come to court. And then they were apparently planning to bring in all these advocates from South Africa and all those things. So when we went to court, there were maybe about 5 or 6 advocates. And because I was wondering what is happening here, you would think that is maybe, you think it's the Boerewors festival.
You would think that the trial of Fishrot has started.
Yes. Yeah, you see all those things that are happening. So, but to answer your question, yes, people can, in fact, join. Because that's what the advert, what we were requested by the court. Anyone, there's a specific time when they're supposed to join. I think it's the end of November or so, when they're supposed to do their whole filing. And you'll see the list of respondents are going to increase, so that we are discouraged and determined. that thing for me, this is a terrible miscalculation on their part, because it will be very scandalous. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a judge, but I'm simply just saying, is it acceptable for a father of the house, in this case being a government, to say, you children whose rooms are on this side, you are not allowed to eat pap? Yeah? You children on this side, you are allowed to eat pap, and you can carry your pap even to this side, to the rooms of this other one, but others cannot. So we are simply saying the government have a responsibility towards all. Yeah, that's what the Constitution, they will never pass the constitutional test, because it will be very interesting, actually, if something like that could be allowed. Because we are, even on their version is to say, no, there's a foot-of-mouth disease, go and expand the borders into Angola and all those. And even this argument, for a moment, let's accept that argument. So immediately when you admit that there's a disease, apparently, and that the meat is contaminated, the court would also have to order the responsibility. Then the court must then order the government to stop, people consuming that meat, isn't it, in the north, which is going to be a terrible nightmare. So the government doesn't have the luxury of saying, we are going to maintain this, we are going to maintain. And you will see also, we are advancing political argument. We don't shy away from that, because this country was fought for. People died for this country. And they wanted a particular outcome. This incomplete project of liberation. We are also advancing legal argument. We are also advancing cultural argument to say, if I have 50 cattle in the north and I'm getting married to a beautiful lady from Hobabis, and the family requires 5 cattle, I must buy those cattle while I'm already having them. Those are all cultural arguments, but we are even the economic argument that they are saying. These stories about Norway and things like that. Government-owned study. Derek Conradi, as a lawyer, and his team got millions to do a study, and they came to a conclusion. It's not my version. They are saying In fact, before we even get the agriculture as a whole, and our people are not told about these things, agriculture as a whole only contribute 6% to the country's GDP. 6%. This is agriculture. That means crops, animal, and many other things that we're talking about. So, how much does the beef industry contribute? This beef industry contribute, last time I checked the figures, less than 2% of that 6%. Yeah? Agriculture as a whole, 6%. Of that 6%, this beef thing only contributes 2%. So, meaning 8%, 80% of 90% of the contribution to that agriculture does not account for this whole story. So, and that study by government that went to a cabinet meeting chaired by Pohamba with Geingob as a prime minister, with Schledwein as a minister of finance, says, no, if we remove, according to our study, in fact the conclusion says the removal of the red line, the benefits of removal of the red line outweighs the disadvantages. The disadvantages of removing the red line are smaller compared to the advantages. And they go and quantify it and say, if we remove the red line, agricultural contribution to the country's GDP, which is currently 6%, would increase to more than 20%, I think about 24%. This is government-owned version. So that's why I'm saying I don't imagine a situation where the court is going to, and you will see that government in some of their papers, they are simply trying to, because they know already, they are trying to say, no, the court should not intervene. They are trying to, this thing called judicial overreach, you know, so that the court can somehow be scared and saying, no.
It's not our space.
Yes, not our space. It is your space. Yes, because I mean, there is no historical argument that they can say, because even when on this argument of a foot and mouth disease, when in the 1800s, in 1896, when they established this thing, when they hear, when the Germans heard that there's a foot of mouth disease in East or West Africa, and it's coming down the Zambezi, so they took a decision and saying, the foot and mouth disease is coming, so let's establish a buffer zone. To do what? To protect their head. So already at the foundation of the establishment of the red line, it was already discriminatory. So there were no animals in the northern part of the red line. There were, but the white man was never interested in those cattle. So historically, the red line was always instrument of discrimination. It was a self-help mechanism of the settler. So our argument, and that's why we are saying that that argument of apparently government must somehow, through progressive realization. This is not the first time where this government zigzag. It has been zigzagging. There is a resolution already in 1992. There is a resolution of the land conference in 1992 that says already, absentee landlord, you must expropriate. As we are speaking, I think about 1.2 million hectares of our land is in the hands of foreigners, absentee landlord. That's why we are at Parliament with that bill of banning foreign ownership of land. They failed in 1992. They failed in 2000. They failed in 2020, in 2010, 2020. So why do you think the same people who have failed in 1992 when they were younger? I mean, if Geingob couldn't expropriate the farms when he was 40-something in the 90s, how do you expect him to resolve those problems at 81? And that's why that argument doesn't bite. We have no confidence in this government to self-correct and self-realize. Because if the government is going to do it, why are they not doing it now? In fact, when we filed this court, do you know what this mid-board did? They went to apparently rectify the red line. They advertised a tender to say, hey, and you see that's what they are doing in those boardrooms, because the mistake that they do in those boardrooms when they are having this discussion, hey, Dai Amupanda Manikes Kefalek. My Afrikaans is weak, but that's what they say. But you see those people who are bringing the coffee, those people who are cleaning, those people who are taking the minutes, and I know I'm putting them in trouble, but I'm always aware of what those, I have recordings of what those boas are talking about in the, and then you can see that it's Amupanda, Dai Amupanda Maniki, Dai Amupanda Maniki, in those boardrooms of theirs. But you could see that we are not getting to the content of it, because both the mid-board and the settler and the government, and the weak government and sellout government knows very well that they this thing is not going to pass. And we are arguing all those things. I'm also saying, okay, even if the court is to find that it's not constitutional and all those other things.
30 seconds.
Yes. Even if the court is to find these things, you would also still discover, I'm saying to the court, look, I have a right to culture, I have a right to family, I have a family here in Windhoek. Yeah? So, I must provide for my family. In my culture, if I cannot provide for the family, I'll be regarded as useless. I'm asking the court, allow me to get my meat.
And feed my children.
And feed my children. So how is the court going to say that you are not allowed to get your meat for personal consumption? That's why you would see our strategy is well thought of. That's why they are panicking and trying to do all these things and to frustrate it. No matter what, this red line, it will never going to stand.
Doc, thank you. I thought we were going to talk about your congregation in the coast, but I think when you come back, maybe you'll be in a better position even to then tell us what happened there. That was tonight's show with Dr. Job Amupanda. Again, disclaimer from me, the red line must fall. Good night.
That's the radical push.